Hi guys, this is Olga Redding with Iowa Organic Association and Nick Wallace with 99 Counties. Welcome everybody to our winter webinar and to our webinar with Nick on 99 Counties. Super excited to hear from him today. So just a couple of logistical things. I'll go ahead and share a little bit about Iowa. I have about 6 slides I'll share with you guys. And then after I do so, Nick will share his presentation. Feel free to add your questions either in a Q&A or the chat box, whatever you prefer, during the presentation. And I will be sure to ask those questions of Nick kind of at the end of the, at the webinar today. So, yeah, so what I'll do too is I'll post this to our YouTube channel. This will be available on our YouTube channel for those of you that want to revisit it. And at the end, I'll also share the link as well as a quick survey that will help us, ensure that what we're doing with our programming fits your needs and things of that nature. So let me go ahead and get started with my presentation. And Nick, thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to hear from you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Olga Redding. I'm the Education Outreach Coordinator for Iowa Organic Association. Iowa was established in 2006, and we are a statewide nonprofit organization committed to organic education, advocacy, and community cooperation. Our mission is to advance organic agriculture and food systems in the state of Iowa, and our members represent a diverse community of Iowa's farmers, gardeners, food and farm businesses, and anyone and everyone that wants to support the movement. And you guys are part of that, so thank you. As far as our priorities, we have 4 overarching priorities: education, outreach, advocacy, and community. As far as education is concerned, we have done a plethora of programs such as growing organic expertise to technical service providers. We actually accomplished first of its kind in our training with the NRCS district conservationists last December in conjunction with OATS, Organic Agronomy Training Services. And we will continue to do these NRCS trainings for the next 4 years. So that's very exciting that we will have an organic expert at each NRCS location, hopefully down the road. In addition, we've been doing the growing organic expertise in colleges across Iowa. This has been a program that's been funded by REAP-CEP, Resource Enhancement Conservation Education Program. We've received this for the last 2 years and have visited over 17 colleges across the state of Iowa. So during these visits, I usually share about the organic movement, the National Organic Program, kind of an overview of where organic started and where it's been. And then I bring along an organic farmer with myself, where he or she shares about their story and the reason why they decided to pursue organic agriculture. And it's been really fun to do these visits. Last semester, 93% of the students share that they gained additional knowledge from these visits, and 94% of the students rated the lectures at either good or excellent, which has been very encouraging. Obviously, another thing we do is on farm field days, webinars such as the one that you're part of today, and share various online resources on our website. As far as outreach, we always connect with our community through various conferences such as Marble Seed, O Grain, Practical Farmers of Iowa. So for those of you that are going to Marble Seed, formerly known as Moses, I will be there. So looking forward to seeing you there. And we share all this information on our website and our calendar and our social media. So if you're not already connected with us that way, please go ahead and connect with us that way as well. As far as advocacy, we always try to be at the forefront of our policy leaders. We've met with Secretary Naig a couple of years back, and we are also part of the top funding partnership, which is an important partnership that is, it's a $300 million investment in educating about organic. So we are one of the partners in the Midwest region. So we're very excited to be able to be part of that opportunity. And then, of course, building a community is all we're trying to accomplish here as well. So, getting you in touch with the right people and, getting you in touch with the right resources. If you're not already familiar with our organic resource directory, that's a huge resource that has over 900 businesses, nonprofits, educators, and service providers. It's a document that's available on our website via PDF form. You can go under our resources page, or you can even get a paper copy mailed to you if you wish to. And we feel like this document serves as a valuable tool for Iowa's organic community to achieve growth and continued success in the industry. This webinar is, supported by a grant that we received from USDA Risk Management Agency, and just want to quickly showcase some programs through the RMA that may be available or an option to you and your operation. We have the whole farm revenue program, which provides the risk management safety net for all commodities on the farm under one insurance policy for any farm with up to $17 million in insurance revenue. Then they also have the micro farm program, which is basically similar to the whole farm, but geared towards a smaller operation with revenues of up to $350,000. And there's also this transitional and organic grower assistance program for producers who have crop insurance coverage on crops in transition to organic or certified organic grain and feed crops. So just an FYI, under today's recording, I'll be sure to add links to all of these programs in the webinar description. And then, of course, as a small nonprofit, we rely heavily on your support. So if you're not already a member, please consider becoming one. Or if you have a business and would like to become a sponsor, we welcome that as well. You can reach out to myself or Roz with any questions, but all of that information is also available on our website. And that is all I have to share with you guys. And I'll go ahead and let Nick share his story. Nick, if you want to go ahead and pull up your presentation, that'll be
Absolutely. Great. Yep. Let me share my screen here. All right. Well, first, I looked at everybody who's joined, and a lot of you probably know who I am. But for those who don't, let me just give you a brief kind of background, set the plate for who I am and why I'm talking to you. I grew up in Northeast Iowa, Strawberry Point, Iowa. My dad was a farmer. He was commodity corn, soybeans, oats, maybe some other small grains and cattle and the other livestock all the way up until the 80s, mid 80s, until the bankers and that's a whole another story. But, the bankers and the interest rates skyrocketed, and then he had to divert away from farming into more of a seed business and always stayed connected to agriculture. So I kind of grew up as a half town kid, half farmer kid. So then I, went to a wide variety of colleges, but then our family's direction changed quite a bit when I was in college and was diagnosed with cancer. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 3B. So I had chemo and surgery and the whole 9 yards. Survived that, but it put our family on a different quest for what happened and why. My father was constantly going to acres conferences and organic conferences, working with Barenbrug grass seed in the Midwest here. And so he was up at an acres conference, which you guys probably all know, and heard Sally Fallon speak on behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation. Came home and changed our direction permanently. And pretty much the revelation was that, wow, our food had changed quite a bit since the 80s. And maybe we weren't growing quite as healthy food as we normally had in the past. And then, the introduction of flour, sugars, grains, preservatives, and all the chemicals in our food supply. I'll never quite know exactly what caused cancer, but I'm pretty sure it was probably the cricks and things I was playing in as, in a high schooler. And maybe, I think it was probably atrazine, but, we'll never know. But all that being said, we decided as a family to change the food we ate. And eventually, after college and a stint in a culinary school, I moved back to the farm, and we decided to be a non-chemical regenerative. I guess this would be about 2004. Regenerative really wasn't a thing back then. Grass-fed was just starting, and so my family started in the grass-fed beef industry. Niche industry. Doug Gunnick, who, God rest his soul, was a big proponent. And we worked with Doug Gunnick up in southern Minnesota selling his beef. Then my farm, we decided to transition my organic farm where I'm at now, a Century Family Farm, back to organic. And so we are about 20 years in now. We do organic corn, soybeans, oats, hybrid rye, pasture hay. I've got beef cows. I'm got about 50 to 60 is what I run here. And then right up with before derecho, I was doing some hoop house style pork. And then I had a bunch of laying hens for eggs for my customers. So we started a company called Wallace Farms back then, right after the cancer diagnosis. And when we first started working with Doug Gunnick. So I ran Wallace Farms for almost 20 years. And I did that direct to consumer, one box at a time, in most of the major cities in Iowa and in Chicagoland. I was driving back and forth to Chicago for almost 17 years, almost every other week, every third week. So a lot of trips in the big truck bouncing up and down the road going to deliver meat to those in the city. So we built that up to be a little over $1 million business over the course of, one box at a time. And then we created a snack stick company that was very successful. I started that 10 years ago, and I sold the majority of that 5 years ago. And now I just completed, my brother and I completed the sale of that right after Christmas. So no longer in the snack stick business yet, but I'm working on some new snack sticks now. So all that to give you a picture of, I've talked to a lot of customers. I've dropped off a lot of meat. I've worked a lot of processors. I've raised the animals. I've stopped raising certain animals, sheep, because I just was swearing too much. Yeah, so, am I the best farmer in the world? No. Every year is challenging. Do I market all the time? Yes. And do I care about food and nutrition and health? And yes. And do I care about Iowa and what's happened to Iowa? Yes. So enter into my idea for a bigger movement. 3 years ago, I was at an Acres conference, believe it or not. That's kind of where it all started with my dad back in 90, what would have been 95, 96. I was up there. I saw Zach Bush. I wanted to go meet him. That was I think might be in 4 years now, but and I wanted to talk to Rahe at the tree range model. So driving up there, I was I was just upset because it was early December, but you didn't see one farmer. You barely saw any fencing. Nothing was green. You didn't see livestock outside. 3.5, 4 hour drive. It was just like, what are we doing? I'm going up here, and whenever I go to these conferences, I go because you always get you just kind of fill up your cup and you get your batteries recharged. So I went. It was great. Zach Bush, if you don't know Zach, he's just super inspirational. He cares about food as medicine. He cares about people. I was really excited about the tree range model. So as I'm driving home, I'm thinking, how can we do a tree range model? What if we did that in every county in Iowa? And then what if we could have, a certain amount of beef producers in every county? And what if we could have hog producers, right? The things that I was doing, but how can we make it bigger? Because my goal has always been, how do we change agriculture? And we're not changing agriculture. And I've been going to PFI stuff for a long time. And yeah, I feel like we are growing there. But if you look at the acres in Iowa and what we've done over the last 20 years, I feel like, and I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but I feel like we're still planting GMO corn and soybeans. Another 20 years, I'm 45, another 20 years, I can't see the small amount of progress in another 20 years. It's going to just kill me inside. So I thought, how do we create a bigger movement? And I really looked hard at Wallace Farms and what I'd done over the last 20 years. And I'd stalled out. Like the grocery stores were starting to carry grass-fed beef. I was starting to I had dipped sales for the first time in 20 years. It was just so hard to get people's attention. And I thought, this isn't going to work. Wallace Farms is never going to take it to the next level. So how do we do this? So I'm putting that together with the tree range model. I thought, couldn't we just build a bigger movement? And if we could do, every county had this many birds and this many cows and calves and fat cattle and this many hogs. Like I started to compound those numbers. This is just in my truck, calculator. And I thought, man, this could really work. And so I thought, and embarrassingly, I lived in Iowa, majority of my life. And I didn't know how many counties are in Iowa. So I Googled how many counties are in Iowa, 99 counties. And I thought, the marketing person in me thought, it's perfect. 99 counties is a great name. We could build something on it. So I started with Wendy and Megan and Caleb at PFI, and we just started talking about things. And then we got a small grant to talk about it and to do a business plan. And then that caught wind with my co-founder, who was traveling through the state and across the country, Christian, and he had some investors in his former life. And so 99 counties was pitched, it was funded. And so we just launched late last fall. And so I'm going to work through the slides here. But we are trying to change agriculture in Iowa and beyond. And so that's what the slideshow's about. So let me just start here and I'll kind of break down where I saw the problems and where I think the solutions are. So what we had, and you all probably know this, but I'm just, this slideshow is going to be presented to a large audience probably over and over, but we have corporations, we have outsourced our food in our feeding and nutrition to corporations. And I think it's even higher than 90%, but for corporations, and there's that big graph you've seen where all these food companies and Kraft and that, essentially, it's probably BlackRock that owns the majority of it. So everything is controlled by a few, right? And we're losing our soil, water quality and soil, and no-till is starting to come into favor. And, the government's not quite mandating cover crops, but as you can see, like we just have not treated our soil very well. It's essentially there to just hold up the corn plant, input in, input out, right? So, that is starting to change. There's a big movement for cover crops and no-till, which is great. But to me, that's a fraction of the point of where we need to go. We need to, in my opinion, not use chemicals anymore. I don't believe in glyphosate. I think glyphosate is, when we look back years ahead, we're going to see it as a pretty big mistake that we've allowed to happen. Maybe a separate conversation, but I am for a non-chemical farming and food production system. So I'm a biological based system. As you all know, the decline of small family farms is real. I often see these barns. I look back and say, man, imagine the stories and the life and the vibrancy of these barns, and dairy or beef or hogs or poultry, is the lifeline, and you just don't see you don't see that anymore. You see a decline in that. And so again, as I'm driving up to Minnesota, I'm seeing these barns, and I thought, where have we gone wrong? And so my goal is to see barns like this being built again that have life and vibrancy and animals and nutrition and an energy to them. So same thing that happened to the barns and the people in the homesteads are happening in small towns. That there's a story here that Main Street at one point in the 50s and 60s was alive and well and strong, and it was based off of a community, and that community was growing food and building fence and trading and the globalist type style system is in the Amazons have kind of depleted it. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be rebuilt in the same way. I realize we're in a new world, but I can't help but pull up these buildings to tell a story and say, we need to get back to that energy and vibrancy of small towns, because otherwise they're just going to die on the vine. This slide, I debated putting it in, but I'm going to plant some seeds and I might ruffle some feathers. But when I look at this building and I mean, there are kids that are being helped here. And I think that's the side of the coin that's beautiful with this building, is that there is love and there's people trying to heal kids in that. But what I want you to think about is the fact that this building, this is the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics, brand new children's hospital. Not the kids that are fill up those rooms, not all of them have broken legs and arms and, some type of an accident in ER. There are some of that. And I would take my kid there without a doubt. But this building to me is built on kids having autoimmune diseases and genetic diseases. And I just feel like, is a lot of that based on environment. And so again, I do apologize if this is a controversial slide, but I would love to know how much of this building is because kids have asthma and allergies and ADHD and autism and, all the things. I think it's 60% of kids have autoimmune diseases now. We really need to start asking the question of why that is. Western medicine is really good at anything that happens to someone and how do we, use a procedure or a drug or a pill to correct it. Whereas how much of it can be like preventative? Are we really looking after our children and allowing them to, grow up in a culture with healthy food and all the rest. So again, I felt I just need to bring that up to people. So, all right. So enough of the doom and gloom. Solutions. 99 counties goal is to contract and to buy healthy food from the farmers at the gate, pay them a very fair living wage for producing this healthy meat and other goods. Maybe we get into vegetables and dairy and some other things down the road. And then we're not quite doing it yet. We started with our poultry, putting on the farmer on every package. I would love to get all my processors on board so we can have a full process of traceability so that every farmer is tagged on that piece of meat. And that way, when it's in the customer's hands, they can either scan it or see it and be like, wow, this is Tom German, this is Patty's, this is Noah's animals. And 99 counties is just doing all the hard work in the middle with the processors and the trucking and the cold storage and the delivery, right? So I don't want 99 counties to just be another huge corporation conglomerate that we don't know who raises the meat, even though there's labels and standards. But I would really like to pinpoint exactly who those producers are. And then we carry that all the way to the customer, which is really hard. And we figured out Casey's our delivery driver in Chicagoland, and we do all home delivery. So we're not trying to fight the system. For a long time, I did pickups on the back of the truck. And it worked right up until it didn't. And now it's really hard for people in Chicago to come on a Saturday morning and come meet me. I was starting to see a tapering off of customers. So let's not fight it. Let's do free home delivery with a minimum order to people's houses, because, you know, we just went through the pandemic and Amazon's doing, everyone seems to be, you know, providing that last mile service. So we do offer that, and it, we're finding that people like it, and we just have to get people used, you know, more and more people used to having nutrient dense food delivered to their house. We also, this is Hayden in the blue t-shirt on the left. He works for us in Chicago. He's does some of our new business development and events. That he has this waffle, chicken and waffle business that he does at all the farmers markets, and he has lines and lines of people that that line up, and he's using all chicken. He had his own farm, and now he's joined us, and so we're going to take all this value added chicken and put it in our chicken waffles. And as you may know or may not know, I had a food rig that I put kind of mothballed for a little bit just through, you know, the last couple of years, but giving people food experiences is super important. Food is an emotional act of eating. People love to talk about food. They gather for food. You know, we need to get back to food and community and you know, unique experiences like this. So, and it's a great way to value add, you know, chicken thighs and leg meat and breast meats. We do start working with food banks and those that are less fortunate. But this cannot be a movement that is only selling higher end, more expensive meat to people that have the money. There has to be a balance here. And so we are aggressively trying to service food banks and different people that maybe don't have the funds. And there are different programs. I think the Biden administration just extended the local food program. I can't remember what it's called, that allows these food banks to spend a portion of their money on farmers, direct to farmers food. So we're trying to be an aggregator there. We think that this is a pretty good space. And we're finding from the food banks that they don't have the time and resources to go out to try to aggregate, you know, and work with every single individual farm. So that could be a good role for us. And we're really excited about that too. So we deliver, so I'm in the middle of the Iowa map there. We deliver 100 miles outside of my farm. So that covers, you know, Des Moines, Ames, Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Davenport, Dubuque, most of the main cities. My cousin might start doing Omaha for us. As much as I'd love to deliver to all 99, I mean, from my place all the way to, you know, Northwest Iowa, that's a big jaunt. So someday maybe we can get it to everybody. We wanted to start somewhere where we could obtain a good footprint. And so it's 100 miles from Keystone, Iowa in a radius. And then it's, as you can see, almost all of Chicagoland. So those are our territories. This is last year from my farm. I just, you know, we get our food from the soil. You know, I'm not doing lab grown meat. I'm not doing plant-based, chemical-based Impossible burgers. And I'm not into, you know, fermenting, you know, wastewater into different types of things. There's a whole bunch of people making, you know, different kind of food, fake food, if you will. I think this right here is how you fix everything. The water's fixed, the air's fixed, your carbon goes to the ground, the sunshine provides the energy. I mean, it just makes so much sense. So this is where my heart is, this is where my passion is. And I know a lot of you that are listening feel the same. So this is my message to the world right there. This is not my farm. I wish it was. I think this is biggest little farm that I Googled, and I wanted to just add it because it's beautiful and it is therapy, and it also grows a lot of healthy food. Could you imagine? I mean, that's probably what, maybe 15 acres, 20 acres. Could you imagine if we had pockets of these in every county in Iowa, growing food, you know, locally to feed local? it's just, I mean, yes, time, money, resources, but it's something I'm trying to manifest. I'm trying to bring people along with me, that this is the type of thing that we should be putting our young people into. This is where we should be investing our dollars, on our time and our sweat and our blood and our passion. So, and then if you fix those last two slides, if those happen, then this happens too, because, people are still going to live in towns, and they should have a baker and a butcher and a candlestick maker, right? And honey and all the things. And then you need hardware and you need fencing. And so I think this is winner set. I don't see why we can't create small town vibrancy by having a vibrant local community of farmers that are around it. I know that it will happen. I can't put it on paper. I can't give you all the statistics and the graphs and that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what happens when you you get people back on the land. And then, so I put the children's hospital in there, right? And maybe ruffled some feathers, but this is where it's at. This is what the kids need to be doing. We are all made of soil, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and not enough kids are doing this. And I think we're seeing that play through our health system. So, these parents are doing it right, and we should have schools that are doing this, and this is the way, in my opinion. I don't want any county left behind. I know that I don't know if there's anybody in Page or Taylor County that is farming organically. They probably have a very low population. I think one of the lowest population I looked up was maybe it was Ringgold. I can't remember. It was like only 7,000 people live there. But there's no reason why we can't start a tiny little seed of fire there and to bring them along. And that means farming, that means small town, and that means citizen consumer health too, right? I mean, there was a big Dollar General thread that was been blowing through PFI. We have to start somewhere. And so if I can get in there and we can start with 5 counties and then 10, and we can start this movement, I think you'll start to see it ripple across the country, hopefully in the next 20 years. So that's where my passion and my focus is, that I'm not just trying to focus on the cities. I really would like to see this reverberate across the state. And this isn't just Iowa. I mean, imagine all the other states that surround us and the counties that they have, I mean, this is going to cross borders. So that's my goal. And, this is more like kind of an investor slide I left in here, but it's Chicago and Iowa now, but there's no reason why Iowa, and these states can feed themselves, but there's no if they're not going to, then, we will. There's no reason why we can't feed Minneapolis and Milwaukee and St. Louis and Kansas City. Those are all, to me, local is, can you drive there and back in a day with the delivery of food? And all of those cities just happen to be a day drive and back. So it is an endless opportunity. So in my opinion, and the market is massive. I mean, look at the US meat and dairy and eggs, and just Chicago and Iowa. We're talking billions of dollars if you get this right. And I'm not doing this for money, but we all know that, money to me is energy, right? If I have $1, it's just paper. What it is I've earned that energy, and I get to choose who I send that to. And then that moves through the system, and eventually that customer at the end is giving the energy back to the system, right? So I try to think about money as energy, and where do you want to put your energy? So, and then this is a great slide. I mean, Chicago, I've lived in Chicago downtown, not too far from the bottom right corner here. Every time I went in there, I thought, man, I don't see any farms. Who's feeding all these people? I mean, there's, 10 million people. Who's going to feed them? Right now it's corporations, right? And I know that, our corn and soybeans and confinement hogs and, all of that plays into the system. And it's not like they're not being fed by a farmer, but are they being fed well by the right farmer and the right system? I would argue not, but I think we could start changing that paradigm, and we could feed a big chunk of the city. I mean, if I ran a bunch of numbers, I mean, I could almost feed the city of Chicago with 20% of Iowa's land if it all moved to growing cattle, hogs, poultry, grains. So it's there. It's just we've kind of gotten so far down the rabbit hole, I don't think we can see the forest of the trees now. So, and then I took this photo about the time that I started 99. It was the spring after, and the vision. And my farm's on the left, obviously, and the farm on the right is, this was like, I think this was May 1st or May 2nd. And I've got borderland with a variety of grasses growing, probably some weeds in there. And then you can see on the very left, there's new oat ground that's emerged and, greening up. So I put this, blew this up and made it into a canvas print, and I put it in my house. And it just struck me. I mean, I literally just stopped and sat there for 10, 15 minutes and thought about it. And, I think we're at a time in society right now where we really need to choose where we want to go. We need to pick a side. And I'm guessing all of you, I know what side you're going to pick, but if we could start to just share that message and really just start to pull in one or two people to, buying meat locally. And it doesn't have to be 99 counties. It can be, a lot of you are probably growing meat or food for other people. But it's not enough. We really need to ramp up our growth and get more people to pick the left side. So that is my presentation to you, and I will stop sharing now.
Amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Lots to think about for sure, as far as some of the points that you brought up about chronic disease increasing in children and things of that nature. But without getting tangled up in my own thoughts, I'll go ahead and ask the questions from our Q&A, okay? So Patty says, are your farmers and their products certified organic? What does 99 counties do to support farmers with production, processing, etc.? That's question number one.
First part of that, not all the farmers are organic. Some are. What we require is not a non-chemical approach. So one of our main beef producers is not certified organic, and he doesn't certify his animals, but he doesn't use any chemicals. Chooses not to certify, the beef. I don't certify my animals, but I certify all my ground. So, just for paperwork, various reasons, sometimes I bring in stock from a friend of mine. So, not all of them have to be organic or any of them, but we do have to move to a biological non-chemical system. So no fungicide, herbicide, pesticide. What was the second part of that question? It was,
what does 99 counties do to support farmers with production and processing?
We handle the processing, so we're just buying live animals, and then we handle all the breakdown and the tough part with trying to utilize, carcass balance and all that. And then we're so young that we're trying to really focus on pushing out the sales and marketing side. I would defer, like if we get a farmer that's not organic, but would like more information, I feel like we can be a conduit to, this organization, PFI, Rodell, Savory, like all of them kind of have that, they all have their own like vibe and tempo and culture. So, and some people are, part of multiple of those, but I would probably lead them to explore a little bit on their own and just kind of help them out with where to tap in. If that
Wonderful. Yep,
helps.
yep, that's good. Next question is from ALSH Zoom. Not sure, but how regular a supply do you need of your animal products? Every month, every week? Can you accommodate seasonal production?
Yeah, so this is the hard part that, I probably should have seen coming, in a little bit of blind spot, but we went out of the gate and we bought a lot of live animals, and our freezer is completely full. And now we're trying to balance out, like, how fast do we think we can grow? We're trying to grow more. I mean, we're on the lower end of where we want to be for sales, to be honest. I mean, it's just part of the business. Like, we just launched. It's really hard to get people's attention. Right now, it's a crazy world. And so we're not really onboarding new farmers yet. Like, we have 23. But we're probably going to pause right now because we have to work through some supply, and then before you know it, we'll be going out and adding more farmers. So that's kind of where we're at with that right now.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and that was Margaret Smith, just FYI. And
Yeah.
then she has a follow-up questions. What are your quality control guidelines for products?
Back to the no chemicals. And we have a certain amount of non-confinement, so there has to be real outdoor space, and room. It's kind of, Joel Salatin saying is like, we want the chickens to be, express their true chickenness and hogs and beef. So we do have a full protocol packet that I can share with people. We're working on how do we third-party audit that right now. Right now, I pretty much know all the farmers, and we've been documenting it with photos and transparency. But the bigger we get, we're going to have probably a third-party auditor, just because everybody's they should be cautious, and you want someone to be checking in on people that are doing what they say they're doing. So it's a fair question.
Indeed. Cindy McCullough, she's asking, is there a list of producers in each county
That we work with?
Mhm.
Maybe. I don't, not that I haven't published it yet. Like, we don't have a full index on our site, but that's actually a pretty good. We highlighted 4 of them, me and 3 others, when we launched, with a really high production videos, kind of like who we are. And one's the Beards, who do turkeys, and the Beards do smaller production for beef, and they do their artisan pizzas. And then we have the Jewels, who do turkeys, and then Jude Becker, which maybe a lot of does the organic pork, but we work with other people too. But that's a good point. We should index all the farmers that we help. So,
Yep.
But it's not there yet.
Good idea, Cindy.
Yep.
Patty, is the meat marketed as organic and labeled as organic? I feel like you kind of answered that question already.
No, we're not making really any claims, because, and that might be something that we need to do, but we feel like as long as we tell the story of a non-chemical biological type system, that we're feeding those grains, or those pastures are being grazed that way, that, I know there's a good and a bad to getting into the certifications and the labels, and so we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Jenny says, how do we connect with you and get involved?
You can just send me an email. What I'm doing with farmers is, because we're kind of in a standstill just as far as onboarding, because I don't want to overpromise people. If we're just kind of starting a conversation with people, and then we kind of put them in an email group list, and then we'll reach out to people and try to visit people over, when we start getting into the growing season, and time allows, as we're all spread across trying to increase sales and marketing awareness. But a lot of that, maybe it'll be field days. And so we have some farm ambassadors that have done some work, and now we're kind of in a low on that too. But just send me an email. It's nick@99counties.com, or you just, you can do the inquiry on the website at 99counties.com. It'll find me. My sister does the customer service still, so she passes those on to me.
Awesome. Gary Huber said, been watching your growth, curious about customer acquisition, meaning how do you acquire new household customers in the Chicago area?
That's the hard part. So there's in this world, you have to have a digital campaign. And that's both, then that has a two-pronged approach. There's branding. So you're just putting out content. You're just trying to people get used to who you are and what you are. Then you're putting out digital like ads, where you're trying to get people to, call to action, where they actually buy from your ad, which is really hard because there's so many people trying to sell things. So the digital is, we have a really wonderful young gal, Emily, who does our marketing, and I'm trying to do videos at home, and we're doing pasture video. It's kind of hard to get content right now on the farms, but we've got some from last fall. So the digital is always there. And then I'm doing, along with some other people on the team, are doing in-person events. So my nephew works at a very large vet hospital clinic. And so you've got a lot of people that are, working, they care about animals, it's pets, but they're into husbandry. And so we did a big lunch and learn with like 80 of them. And so we fed them, a taco bar with all of our meats, and just had a conversation with them one-on-one. I almost feel like that has the most impact, because, we're so disconnected now from people, that if you actually sit down and feed them and have a conversation, I think that's the only way to really grow this. So we're kind of coming into farmers markets. That's a good way to do it. We're going to have a lot of farmers market presence. We're going to start doing more of these company, lunch and learns. And so it's just kind of a ground game that you got to put in a lot of hours to just have great one-on-one conversations. It's kind of old school.
Well, I love that. And I want to share a personal testament to your Facebook ads. So you guys must be retargeting people that are your website visitors, because I went on your website, of course, and then I've been getting some of your Facebook ads, and they're very nice. So kudos to you. That those are definitely important. There's been marketing research that shows that in order for a customer to convert to a purchaser, you have to have seven touch points.
Yep.
So yeah, keep doing the good work. It takes some time, but it's worth it for sure. People will start being, oh, I remember that. Oh, let me see if I can check out their website, etc.
I think the hardest part is that people, it's just that grocery store just has that pull, like, where do you get food? I get it from the grocery store. And a lot of times there's the right label and claim that people are looking for. And not to pick on any company, but there is a version of what they think they want at the grocery store, whether it be Whole Foods or, Hy-Vee or whoever. I don't know if Fairway's really tapped into the grass-fed. I doubt it. But people think that, they wear the, they cut the meat in the back and they have the hats, and, Fairway's really trying to be the meat business. But, none of that meat in Fairway, I'm picking on Fairway a little bit, I guess, but none of it comes from small farmers. They're buying in large swaths from corporations that are, feedlot or confinement animals. So
the big four that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, at Fairway, how could Fairway's model work if they didn't? I mean, they can't work with 48 small producers to have a, they're trying to sell consistent widgets of meat. They're trying to do their thing. And so I get it. Fairway can do their thing, but I just want to educate people on, now there's phytonutrients that you can document in meat. And if anybody knows where you can test for not just omega-3 and CLA, but the phytonutrient, I think that's a newer thing. I would love to core sample all of our meat, or at least from one farm at a time for these phytonutrients. Cause I think that's the future. I think people are going to start buying food based on medicine if we can measure it, right? Like Kittredge, I think is, like scanning carrots and telling you like, oh, this is a 10, this is a 1 based on the frequency that carrot is giving back based on his database, right? So I think I've got all that right. But I mean, eventually you'll be able to hold maybe in your cell phone, and it'll scan the frequency and energy of that food and tell you like, this is good for me. And it's at the higher level. And yes, it's more money, but why would I mess around with a carrot that barely registers on the phytonutrient scale? So anyway,
Oh, I love that. I love that. You're thinking long term. You're thinking futuristic, and I absolutely love that. That's totally true, because ultimately as a consumer, if you can pay a little extra and get a lot more benefits and a lot more nutrients out of the food that you are consuming, that's the most important goal, I think, that the consumer wants to get out of their food that actually feeds their bodies. John Fagan, have you heard of John Fagan? He does a lot of testing by the Maharishi University, or maybe he works in conjunction with Maharishi, where he looks at a lot more characteristics to the food and its nutrient density. So see if maybe he can somehow test your meat. Maybe that would be an option. All right, I have quite a few more questions here, so we need to make sure we go through those. Okay, Penny Huber said, many traditional farmers, ranchers seem to care most about the bottom line. How can a mid-sized rancher truly make more money selling grass-fed beef rather than traditional beef?
I think it has to come from the customer. If we can convince a large swath of customers that paying $8 or $8.99 or depending on volume for their ground beef, then that 99 counties is only going to take what we need to live in the middle to do all the middle things, and then the more ranchers we can turn on and pay them more, it just swings back. It's full circle, right? So I just want to hold space and place in the middle to make the exchange. But it really relies on a culture of a customer realizing that ground beef is worth $8 and not $5. Ground beef commodity, crappy ground beef is more than $5 now. I think I don't buy meat in the store, but every once in a while, look, I think meat's gone up quite a bit. So if that gap gets closer and closer, man, we win that. I mean, we win that all day long. So
yeah, it's about quality over quantity. And yeah. Phil and Mary said, will you get into other states for producers eventually?
We have a couple in southern Minnesota. Wendy was an ambassador for a bit. She had a couple contacts up there. So we're working with Lorenz Meats and Dover Meats, because we just can't I can't find the Iowa processors that fit right now what we need, and maybe they're out there, so I'm not saying they're not, but so we're already spilling over a little bit, and we get some eggs from Indiana Illinois border, just because Hayden, our guy, found them. So, and I probably will turn on my eggs and maybe another producer. So yeah, we're okay with, as long as it's within kind of our eat local days driving back. That's where I'm at.
Okay. Lyndon says, are there any regulations on grazing management? Are the cattle grass-fed only, or do you allow different types of winter feed allowed?
We stick with the standard, like just no starch. So, I feed forage, sorghum, hay, baleage, oatlage. It just has to be forage based. It can't, be a diet of starchy grains. So
okay. Max said, as far as head counts you have processed this year, what are you at for cattle, hogs, chickens, and turkeys?
Where we'd like to be, and I think we'll be, as we push through a lot of our inventory, if I could get to processing and selling 30 to 40 beef a month, I mean, I'd like to do a lot more than that, but let's start there. 30 to 40 a month for beef. And then I think pork's always kind of like the 3 or 4 times the ratio because of size. So if we could move, three times that, so say 100 hogs a month. And then poultry, I think we up at Stacyville, I mean, we ran a lot of birds through there. I think in the summer and fall, we ran maybe 15,000 birds through Stacyville. So I'm not sure what, because those are bigger batch. You don't have like a constant flow because, you don't raise birds now usually. And then the processing, they've shut down for a while. So that's a little more like you take a big amount and then you stockpile it. So I would love to do 20,000 birds next, moving into this year.
What about turkeys? Is that kind of similar to
Turkeys? We just had certified organic, the Jewels up in Decorah do a batch for us. That has its own challenges because Stacyville can only process so many, and they're a bigger animal, and you don't know how many you're going to sell. So we're talking like, do we do a bunch of smaller producers that can deliver 20 or 200 or 300 birds to Stacyville? Will they all be the same? What heritage do we use? Do we use just the whites or do we use bronze? I've raised some other smaller heritage and they're small, and and then at what price, right? Because the customer can only pay so much for a bird. I mean, I don't think a customer is going to pay more than, $80-90 for a big, good sized turkey. So many factors. It's really hard.
And Jenny kind of has a follow-up question to this one. Any goat and sheep?
We did do a little bit of lamb. I think we did like 30 or 40 head. And they sold really well. I don't know if we're all the way through them. So we are I don't know about goat because I'm not sure processing is usually the bottle. The hard thing for smaller animals, ruminants, is the processor, because you're only working, you're getting back 30 pounds, maybe of meat, give or take 40 or less. Goats, haven't have a lot of experience with goats, but 25. And I just don't know, by the time you work in all the layers, like, can you get that to the customer at the price that they can tolerate? So, although I think more goats and sheep on the land is really great for the land. Mm-hmm. It's just, how do we make all that work?
Do you balance it all out? Yeah,
it's really hard. I would love to. I want the more animals populating the countryside. I mean, that is like, that's where my heart is. The business part of me goes, take a breath.
Yeah. One step at a time, one project at a time. Yeah. Patty has a question. Are you investigating the possibilities of supplying institutions such as children's hospitals?
I think that will come. Oh gosh, the guy, Eric Kleinschmidt and or Jim Kleinschmidt, and then Eric that had Pipeline. They were working on some hospitals out east, like to do a program. Because here, this is not to get too far into it. All the institutions will tell you, right? Let's just say it's hospitals, would tell you, hey, we really want a cleaner meat and we want to do this and that. And then you get to the table and you tell them like, okay, this farmer needs to make this much and we need to make this much and the processor needs to make this, and here's what our price is. And then they're like, well, but we can't afford to pay that because of this, this, and this. So they want what they want at the price they want. And we're not a huge corporation that can say, oh, well, we have 5 million pounds. Of course, we can only make 50 cents a pound because it's still, you're still in the millions of dollars. Well, if we all took that haircut as producers, well, you can't even pay your taxes and your crop insurance or whatever, you can't even keep the lights on. So it's a numbers game, unfortunately, but I would love to get there. And, if anybody knows the buyer at the children's hospital, maybe don't share them that one slide, but I would have the honest conversation. I mean, somebody's got to start having the honest conversation of, what are we feeding kids in the children's hospital? Is it sugar, flour, and, confinement dairy, like, right? The 3 white devils. Are we Are we feeding them bone broth soups when they're recovering? I doubt it. I spent some time in a hospital. I know what you're fed, and it's all inflammatory foods. So, we're just not having the right conversations. Nobody's really talking about the truth here. So
Yeah, we could have a whole other webinar on this subject matter. Yeah. Someone asking, or I guess this was more of a comment, others are entering this space like Chop Local. Is there room for more? I think that's one you mentioned, you were talking about Fairway. Yeah.
Chop Local, there's Barn to Door there. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of people that are like, man, we've got to get farmers and real food into the system. I think that's where we're seeing some of the consumer fatigue online, because they're just seeing all of us kind of fight for maybe the few amount of customers there are. So my big challenge is, how do you awaken a bigger segment of the people in Chicago and the cities? That's what we're trying to crack. If we can get those groups turned on, then I think Chop Local runs out of meat and we run out of meat. And, I would love to see us scrambling because we just can't produce enough food. I don't know. Do we need another pandemic where Costco's like, hey, we can only limit 2 per? I mean, that was 2 years ago. I lived through that. I was crazy. I mean, I was taking truckloads full of meat to Chicago, and it was like 3 months of just constant, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, it was like, whew. I went back to below levels before that. So everyone's like, oh, okay, Costco's still, now our grocery stores are back and ready to go. So I don't know. I mean, it's a crazy world. I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good one. April at Meatsmith Co-op says, are you testing for omegas currently? No,
but that's on my radar. As soon as the grass greens up and we start harvesting beef right off pasture, I think I've got to tell that story. We got to be able to start selling this meat as a superior product just based on nutrition alone, and it has to taste good, right? We can't have bad. Yeah. We've had bad grass-fed beef, so.
Yeah. Margaret has a question. Are you moving toward any carcass quality, food quality requirements? These have been crucial for Neiman and Thousand Hills.
We're trying to be I think carcass, she's talking high select, low choice. Like we need and I think that's where Thousand Hills is. I've seen some of their stuff that's very really well marbled and some that's okay, but you've got to have enough of a high quality experience that consumers are used to. It doesn't have to be prime, but I think there is a carcass quality minimum that you have to live by. And so to me, that's like 70% select and higher. For hogs, we base that most on 280-pound hog is what we shoot for, and we price it accordingly. So when we do a pricing structure, we try to pay more for where our sweet spot is. And I can share all of that later, and if someone wants to email me, it's part of the protocol package too. So, and it's changing a little bit, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of based on land price and processing price and all those things that add up. So
ever evolving.
Always.
Yeah. Jenny says, are you trying to work with public schools and institutions? And that's probably a similar answer to the hospital.
Yeah, I'd love to. It'd be great. And maybe that's, if I can get my team moving on some of the other stuff, maybe that's my role. I get to go out and have those maybe really great conversations or uncomfortable conversations, but I guess I'm old enough that I'm starting to not care. So let's just get right to it, right?
Somebody has a comment, awakening a bigger segment of the urban population. Well said. Another pandemic ? Need to be visible, relevant. You've got the relevance part figured out.
Yeah, and maybe we need to just blow out a big campaign in the Des Moines farmers market, maybe, or I don't know if anybody has suggestions. It's just that banner, right? You need to have the banners in the sky 7 times before people are like, oh, what is that? What are they trying to accomplish? And they're like, oh, they're trying to bring small towns back. They're trying to bring healthy soil back. They're trying to, bring healthy kids back. They're trying to bring back, I'm not saying we're going back to 1950s and 60s with Iowa. My dad, Keystone was 500 people. Keystone in the late 50s had a movie theater, a grocery store, and like a hopping cafe and bowling alley. I mean, let me just say, we do have a bowling alley just because they subsidize it, but that doesn't, we've dropped off a long way. Now, I'm not saying it's all going back to that, but I think there's a certain amount of people in the cities that like realize the cities don't fulfill them totally, and they want experience of the countryside, of the farm. And sometimes they want it, they can get that digitally. But I think if we can create experiences out here with music and food and, give them some of this culture, I think that's probably our best chance to start turning them over.
April from Meat Smith Co-op. Our farm bill needs to address this healthy soil, water, people, community.
Might not want me to talk about politicians.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't come top down, but it definitely has to go start bottom up, and then you force the top to come down.
Mhm.
That's all.
And it has to be consumer driven, basically.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah. Well, you guys, we went a little bit over than 1 o'clock. So thank you, everybody. Well, I think there's one more question. Not a question, just thanks to Nick for expressing his vision so well and why we need to change agriculture. That was from Patty Naylor. Thanks, you, Patty. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. And Nick, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for fighting the good fight and doing good things. And ultimately, things will change, but what you're doing is incredible. So we're so grateful for everything that you're doing. So thank you so very much. Keep at it, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help spread the word and your message. So
absolutely, I wouldn't do anything else. This is what I'm supposed to do. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for attending. Like I mentioned, I'll circle back with everyone, send the link to the recording that will be posted on our YouTube channel, as well as share a quick survey that if you please could share your thoughts and opinions, that would be greatly appreciated. Nick, again, thank you so much, and hope you have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.